for
I
joining,
enjoyed
man.
it. Of course. Of course. You had me at indie and basketball.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was told actually by someone in my Discord channel that you actually played basketball. So,
I did. Wait, I need to know who this is. This is
well, he's a
who's
big
this
fan
for?
of San Fermin. So,
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah.
um, yeah, it's funny. I saw a random link in Discord that was like your NYU player page.
Wow, man. Yeah. I had as many surgeries as I did collegiate points. It's tough, but
Ooh,
I'm two for two from the line. That's all I'll say.
there you go.
That's I don't know if that qualifies for a relevant percentage, but I'm 100% if anyone asks.
Well, I can say without a doubt that you have more professional basketball experience than anyone else I've had on the podcast. So,
Okay, cool, cool, cool. I'll take that.
I mean, I had Josh Burlinger coach basketball, but
Oh, really?
yeah, he coached high school basketball for a little bit,
Wow.
which was cool.
Cool.
Yeah, but so thank you for joining.
Yeah, of
Before we
course,
get into
man.
that, well, I'm recording this right now, so it'll just
Yeah.
keep going. Um, but yeah, thanks again for joining. It's good to have you. You said you've been working on a new album, huh?
Yeah, we just so I just recorded and produced what will be the next San Fermin LP. So we Ellis and I like co-wrote it man time like in the middle end of the summer, like July, I think
Hmm.
probably. And then we recorded it basically right after that. And almost 2 years ago, we bought a studio, which is what I'm sitting in now.
Hmm.
We bought a studio, which is where like it's sort of our label headquarters, and then also the studio is the same name, Better Company Studios. It's over in Fort
Yeah.
Greene in Brooklyn, and it had been the headquarters for Communion Records before, so we actually bought it from Ben Lovett, who's the keyboard player from Mumford and Son,
Yeah.
runs Communion, and uh, it's nice because the EP we just put out and then this record have been ones where it's been just kind of home cooking in a way that I think we're settling into more. Like that 3 song EP was sort of a test run for me, like properly producing and engineering for the band, which like I'd done things similar to producing for the band before, like certainly informally, but this was like, all right, here, let me do this in the way that like I would do it for another project
Sure.
and all that kind of thing. And then it we all survived. We're all still friends. So then we tried it with the album. But yeah, so it's off. Should be getting mixed soon. I think we'll probably have mixes after Thanksgiving. And I think the record will be out next year sometime.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so you and Ellis, like you, how did you guys meet at school?
No, so we we met at it was actually a basketball connection, sort of. Like we met at Berkeley College of Music has these like summer songwriting. They have all kinds of different like week-long things that kids can do, high school
Mhm.
kids. And so we were 15 and we both went to the songwriting workshop, which is like 8 days long or like 10 days long, whatever. But you just like stay there, you stay in the dorms. We both happen to be like full disclosure, like soft ass mama's boys. And so the like we got dropped off and both like immediately had interactions that like scared the shit out of us. And so we eventually bonded over being like, oh, you had a panic attack last night too. Dope.
Yeah.
Ellis had a friend who's from he's from outside of Boston, and so he had a friend who was there with him, who he was like supposed to keep his eye on. Friend like ran off in the middle of the night. I personally had the age is like open ended with those Berkeley things, so like you can be. I think you only have to be 14 or 15 to go, but the upper end is just whatever, and
Sure.
including like staying there. So I showed up. I was 15, and I had I think he was like 22 or 23-year-old roommate who just immediately like I dropped my bag on the bed and like I'd been to basketball camps. It's not like I like couldn't
Yeah.
be away from home, but like I dropped my bag on the bed and he's like, "Hey man, you don't happen to know where to get some coke around here, do you?" And I was
Oh
like,
God.
and I'm like from East Bumblefuck, Pennsylvania. I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "That's the first time I've ever heard the word cocaine not in a Dare commercial."
Yeah.
Like what am I gonna do? And so at first I was like, all right, like maybe I need a new roommate. Like I don't know if we're the same speed. So I went down to the like RA who's supposed to be in charge, who was also I realize now probably younger than that guy. Um, and I was like, hey man, I think maybe I should switch my room. My roommate just asked me for Coke, which just seems like maybe not my thing. And he somehow totally misunderstood me and goes, oh, dude, I don't think I can find you any Coke, but if you hang around, I can definitely score you a bag of weed. And I was like, who's in charge?
Yeah.
What are
What
we
is this place? How did
doing?
I get
Like,
here?
what's like, I'm here for how long? But anyway, Ellis and I both had these like suddenly panic inducing moments. And then we hung out the next day. I ended up moving into his room, which like he had this big suite. There ended up being like eight of us in there, but we really bonded because we both played AAU basketball. And then it
Oh,
became a like, if you're in that AAU scene, it's like, uh, you all go to the same tournaments and there's all that kind of thing. But then there's also like I feel like AAU is like it's got its lore in the same way that like going to a music festival does. Like that's part of why I think
right.
Ellis and I talk about basketball and music like all the time. But it's like seeing people before they're big. Like especially
Yes.
Ellis and I were both on good AAU teams, so we saw guys that like were going to like real schools, and it's like,
Right,
oh,
right.
have you run into so and so? And like that year, I graduated. He was 2007. I graduated 2008 from high school. Tyreek Evans was the number one player in the country, and he's from Philly, and
Mm.
would like occasionally grace the roster of an AAU team, but like the AAU coaches wanted him there so bad at their tournament that it didn't even matter. Like he played on everyone's team, but like you're just when you're that age, you're like seeing people who are about to go pro, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that is a different thing than what I do. Like he's
Hmm.
my height, but he just hit his head on the backboard, and that's not a
Yeah,
relatable
yeah.
feeling for me.
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and we're the same. We're
Yeah.
the same age actually.
Oh, cool, cool.
So my high school, I remember we had a game against Simeon where Derrick Rose was playing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, oh,
Casual.
okay, this is like the fastest guy I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
man.
it's wild when you because like normally like the suburban districts like they don't ever play like the good schools. That was like a
Right,
summer, it was a random summer game. So it's like
right,
when you actually
right.
play good talent, it's like, oh, they're really just so much better than everyone else.
Yeah, it's just yeah, it is a whole other level when you see it. And it just so happened that when I was so the high school I went to was like I got recruited to play basketball at this like private high school. It was a really good school. My dad had always been my basketball coach growing up, so it was just a
Hmm.
confluence of like it being good there. The coach there has is like Philadelphia legend. He unfortunately just passed away, but he was like I'm trying to think of who the uh, he like had turned around the program and like made it's called Germantown Academy, but it's
Okay.
the like turned it into this powerhouse. And it was like I remember when I was visiting in the seventh grade, they had a guy who was going to Duke, a guy who was going to like Florida, like all this kind of stuff. And then I think it was that year. It must have been 2004 or three, but they were playing LeBron in the tournament. It was like, oh
Hmm.
my God, like you're gonna get to see all these guys. And then it turned out by the time I was in school, it was like we played Wayne Ellington and Gerald Henderson were on the same high school team and were in our league. Like we played them four times a year. And it's like
Dang.
I've never seen anyone jump over like Vince Carter or someone, but Gerald
Yeah.
got close a couple times, like
Oh
where you
yeah,
like
he
try and
could get
take a
up.
charge. Yeah, like you try and take a charge. It's like I think you just need him in the chin. Like I like truly, this is not a again. I know what I just saw, but this is just not relatable. But yeah, like you start to see those guys. The Marcus and Marquise Morris were both in Philly, and
Hmm.
it's like, oh, here two 6'9" dudes who are shooting threes. Sick,
Yep.
relatable, like all
Yep.
that kind of stuff. But it was
That's
wild to see, and like you become a fan very quickly as soon as you make
for
peace with the
sure.
fact that they're doing a different thing.
And I didn't know Ellis hooped as well.
He did, man. Yeah, I told him I was doing this, and he was super jealous. I'm sure you'll
Well,
get a DM.
yeah,
You got to have him on.
absolutely. I'll hear the other side of the coin.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Cool. Um, yeah, that's awesome. So like I guess when you were growing up, because when did you like shift from basketball to music? Or is it
So
always kind of been together?
they were always kind of together, and I think so. The funny thing about San Fermin is everybody in the band studied music like at some level between at least a college degree and
Yeah.
like in a few cases like higher education. Like John, our trumpet player, I think has two masters in trumpet.
Right. Right.
Um, but I'm completely self-taught as a musician, so I've always been like I've always played music, I've always written songs. Like I was going to those camps in between going to basketball camp when I was younger, but it was the kind of thing where I was like, man, if you think going to the NBA is like not like if you know enough to know like okay great that's not what you're going to do with your life like obviously because again as soon as you see somebody who is you're like right different I sort of felt the same way about music. I was like oh
Mhm.
music is a thing I like to do but like you know yeah I just played because it was like it was all I wanted to do. It was like instead of doing my homework I was playing a guitar very quietly so my parents thought I was
Right.
doing my homework in my room, right? And then after my homework was done I would go out and like my dad and I would work out you know, in my driveway. He was always my coach, but like, you know, for another hour, 2 hours until I went to sleep because basketball was like, at least when you're younger, it was like, well, you can play in college. Like I ended up
Mhm.
having a bunch of like, I tore my ACL 3 times.
Oh
So
God.
yeah, I'm nice on crutches. Like if
Yeah.
someone like hand me a pair of crutches, like I have all the tricks. I'm good. Um, but so I had all these injuries, but like it was a thing where I was like, oh, I probably could like go play at a night, like at a good school. Like I was getting, by the end, I was getting recruited by like Dartmouth and like Colgate, like basically Ivies
Mhm.
of the Patriot League, that kind of
Sure.
stuff.
Sure.
And it's still how I ended up at NYU. Like that was, uh, I'm not sure that I thought I wanted to go to like a small New England school or something like that. Like I was like
Right.
Williams, Amherst, like that kind of thing. And then I went and like when you're 18 and someone shows you New York City for the first time, you're like, oh, this could be cool, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is like, I
I
guess
mean,
so, sure.
especially if you're like you are also passionate about music, so it's like to be in a city that has multiple things that interest you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's just it's an amazing time to be living in like the center of the universe, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just you can do anything. It's awesome. Um, so I was doing that and but yeah, music, like even when I was at NYU, it's like again, you're around people who are so good and so serious. It's like Steinhardt, all these people are like major players and I'm like oh no I can like you know play some songs that I learned very specifically from tabs like
Yep.
and I'm not like really a musician like that you know or people who are at, like musical theater who are like now on Broadway like you know all
Mhm.
that like
Mhm.
there's just always felt like that same level difference where I was like no I mean I make music and like Ellis and I are best friends and he was at Yale so like we still had this band together and I would like I'd hop on Metro North and go to Yale and I'd like
Yeah.
we'd play a show at some place and then I'd get trashed and like sleep on the floor of his dorm and then like you go home. It's like that was my music experience all the way until the end of school and I was like oh like I was a philosophy major and I was like I'm going to go to law school. Columbia had this like really cool JD PhD program. I would have been in school for like 7 years. And so I was like, it's going to be a lot of school. Let me take a year off and do the music thing, and I'll just get a job. Like I interned for one of my professors for a little while. And during that year, the band got signed. We played one show and got signed after the show. And I never
Wow.
went to law school. Yeah, it was a crazy time. 2012, a blog blew us up. It was amazing. Um, but yes, I kind of never took music was always like a thing I could not do. But in terms of like turning it into a career, I was like, that's crazy. Like that's not
Mhm.
a you have to be a one in a million talent, and that's just not how I thought of myself. Like what I was doing was uh I think much more internal than that. I was playing because I liked writing songs. I was showing them to
Sure.
people because they liked them, that kind of thing. I was writing with one of my best friends who Ellis is like compositionally, like it felt like when I watched him compose a string arrangement or something like that, it's like, oh no, he's studying composition at Yale. Like again,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is just not that's not a level I'm at. Like I can bring him a song and he can arrange it, but like I can't hang like that.
Mhm. Yeah. So did you went to Berkeley too, right?
No, no, I went to NYU.
Oh,
I
shit.
just went
Okay.
to those I went to those Berkeley like summer camps as a kid.
Your Wikipedia
Um,
is incorrect.
is that right? Does it say I went to
Yeah, it
Berkeley?
says you met Ellis at
Uh,
Berkeley
well, technically we met at Berkeley,
at the
but at
camp.
like a summer camp. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
Oh
I'm
God, I
correct
don't
here.
want people out here thinking I went to Berkeley. That
Yeah,
that'd be
yeah.
terrible. Geez,
So
that's worse than my college stat line. And I ended up going to Berkeley, man.
so what you're saying about, not having the traditional kind of music background, did you feel like early on then and you guys playing together like you had imposter syndrome a little bit, or?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, I still do now producing
Yeah.
people's records. We just had the label just turned two or like close enough that we threw a party in the studio for the first time.
Congratulations.
Um, Thank you. And I was talking to somebody about it. They're like, oh, like, well, when do you? Because now, like, I'm lucky. The production stuff is sort of rolling. It's what I do now, like full
Mhm.
time, especially with a band, not being on tour. Um, like, oh, like, do you feel more confident now? It's like, no, absolutely not. Like, I'm just comfortable with the fact that like I might plug something and it might sound like garbage, right? Like, I think you always sort of have the syndrome that it might go badly, but eventually you just sort of you make peace with that, and then like you give
Yeah.
it a try, and like sometimes it's dope and sometimes it's not. It's you know to keep the basketball metaphor, it's a heat check. It's like it's a bad shot, but I made the last two, so
Yeah.
right, like
I mean,
like I
everyone
can't
has it in
not
some
shoot.
form. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, that's cool. So you had the band, obviously you've evolved it in the kind of record company and studio. How involved outside of recording San Fermin stuff, like how much are you producing other bands?
Uh, I mean, pretty much every day. If
Yeah.
my wife didn't make me take time off, which is good, and I should do, and I appreciate her for it. But yeah, I'm here 5 days a week at least. Like
Hmm.
sometimes six, but um, yeah, because I think we've done a ton of touring. We've toured all over the world. Like it's been, especially when we were younger. Again, it's like being 18 in New York at NYU, like touring when you're 23, and like actually having the means to see those parts of the world that way.
Right.
It's like I wouldn't trade it for anything. But now I'm 33 and I like sleeping in my bed and like, being in the same place when I wake up every day. Like that's
Yeah.
it's your appetite for a tour just sort of changes. Like now I'm 2 week tour, I'm totally there. 7 week tour, I'm like, I don't know, guys. Like
I mean,
that's
especially after the past few years. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I think I realized how much, again, I like being around any kind of music, and I don't mind. Um, Not even I don't mind, but when people bring, I feel like when people come into the studio with new music, I'm getting them at a really exciting point. Like they're excited enough about it that they want to immortalize this thing and then show it to
Mhm.
people, but they also don't know quite what it could be. It's still like really raw material, and like the energy around that, especially if you can keep it positive, feels really good,
Yeah.
right? It feels like you're adding things, and I think the other thing that's been nice for me is that because I have San Fermin and my own stuff and whatever else, like I don't have to live vicariously through the artist's work. I can
Mhm.
just be supporting it, right? Like I can be facilitating what they're trying to do, um,
Sure.
and that has been really exciting. And I've gotten to work on some cool stuff, and now I feel like I'm at a point where I'm starting to get cool projects because other people like a thing I've worked on, and that feels really really good.
Cool. That's awesome. And it does seem like a kind of a natural progression because I mean, San Fermin in general was pretty collaborative, right? You had people kind of, fluid as members of the band, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've definitely had a lot of uh we're a big band anyway, as we are, and
Yeah.
yeah, they're the actual San Fermin orbit is many more people than that.
Right.
Um, and yeah, I think it's both collaborative in the sense like of the way we shape the songs, or like even if else when the stuff is more heavily composed, like what got recorded in the studio,
Hmm.
the way the live show would change because it was, oh well, we can't play all these parts at once. Well, let's figure this out. Who's going to take what? Who's going to do it? Um, and playing to people's strengths and just seeing the more we played live, like, okay, what does a crowd react to? Because there's nothing more sobering than going and playing a thing that you think is dope that the crowd does not. Like that is the coldest water to the
Sure.
face. Being like, oh, that part of that song does not slap. That is tough for us. Um, but yeah, figuring that out is like that's super collaborative. And then being on tour with all those really smart musicians that
Right.
have been and are in the band, I feel like that's been my music education, has been being around people whose brains are at that level about music and like always have an appetite to talk about it and think about it.
Sure.
That it's playing with better players. Like that's a thing that translates sports music, like whatever you're doing. It's like you will through osmosis like get better doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Uh, so I have to ask, I mean, if you grew up in Philly, how does one become a Knicks fan?
This is my dad is from Queens.
Okay.
Uh, but I'd say if I had uh, it, the Philadelphia like fandom is so militant that like
Yes.
you just sort of have to conform. Like there was, okay, such and such at school, you have to wear green for the Eagles. And my dad would be like, if you leave this house in a green shirt, like don't bother coming back. And so there was that kind of stuff, but also it was a really amazing sports time. Like, I mean, particularly for basketball and football, it's like you have the Donovan McNabb Eagles that are like going to the NFC Championship every year, and then you have Allen Iverson is like
Mhm.
peak Sixers, especially when I'm like younger. It's like that Jerry Stackhouse. Like you get Allen Iverson out of Georgetown, right? He spells his name like he's like my name. He's the best player. Like he's my height. It's just like man, like all this stuff. He's actually shorter than me, but the like it's just it was such a good time that like we would go to Sixers games. Like
Oh yeah.
you end up rooting for that kind of stuff. And also the funny thing about being a Knicks, Mets, and Giants fan is most of those teams are usually so bad that like it's fine to root for other teams. You're like, oh well, my
Yeah.
team's not even kind of in it. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure if we're the same age, like you were in the Chicago suburbs as the Bulls were the Bulls, like
Yeah.
you know,
And like it, I was the early few championships, I was a little too young still,
right.
but like I remember the
Second,
last few. Yeah.
yeah, right,
And then I really got to enjoy like that short Derrick Rose era because I was
yeah,
in college at that time.
yeah. Yeah,
So
I remember I took my dad for it must have been an early Father's Day present. The year he won MVP, one of the I think it was like the last Knicks home game was
mhm.
against Chicago, and we went. I like got him really nice seats, and uh, yeah, I mean, and like just torched the Knicks, but it was incredible. Like
Yeah.
you're watching a guy who's run around other professional athletes that much faster, and
Yeah.
then like jump higher than you've ever seen a person jump. It just it's kind of insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard not to root for that guy, I think.
Definitely. And now he's on your team.
Yeah, yeah, and we have a knee surgery trauma bond too. On top of all
Yes. Well, I'm sure there's a handful of players, not more than a handful of
that,
players that can relate.
a fair few. Yeah,
A Sean Livingston, perhaps, but he made the
dude,
comeback.
that one, I like you said that, and I can see it.
Yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
that is like that is just one of the
That's like
most
YouTube video.
foul.
Yeah.
Oh, like yeah, yeah. That is, yeah. That was a truly tough one.
I hope your injuries were not as ugly.
No, I think that is in the like the 1% of the 1% of hideous injuries. Mine
Yeah.
were not fun. All
Yeah.
during like yeah play, and it's but no, they weren't on that particular level.
Okay. Yeah. So, do you still play?
No, I mean the only I like I'll occasionally go shoot around. Like I'm still yeah. I mean like there's usually usually I'll just shoot around. But the problem with I feel like pickup basketball, especially as somebody who's as precious about their knees as I am,
Yeah.
it's like YMCA kind of pickup basketball is like played by dudes who played JV football and like never quite got the approval from their dads that they want,
Yeah.
and they foul hard. And I'm like, that's just not the way I need to go out right
Yep.
now. So no, I've recently become this year actually like a golf nut. That has been I've finally
Oh,
gotten back into sports via golf.
nice.
Um, yeah,
That's a good way to not attack the knees.
Yeah, not a lot of cutting in golf. It's
Yeah.
not a lot of running and jumping.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I've actually been, I haven't played basketball in a long while either, other than the occasional pickup game. But
Yeah.
it is when it's funny you mentioned that though, because you do get the moment where you're at like a Y, and the dude who comes in who like he just lifted, but he wants to get a run in.
Yeah. Yeah,
Those
yeah, yeah,
guys are
yeah.
like, you're gonna hurt someone if not yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at this point now, it's like if I played a pickup game, it's like I'm gonna shoot threes and I'm gonna play no defense. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. Like, happy to pass to whoever, but do not expect me to meet the same energy as the competitive guys who really need to prove something here.
Right. Yeah. No thanks. Um, are you keeping up with the Knicks and stuff? Like, are you an active watcher still?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I haven't. I feel like this year we've been doing so much stuff with the label. The beginning of the basketball season, I feel like always comes on fast. It's like
Yeah.
there's games that don't matter, and then all of a sudden you look up and like you're in like into the relevant games in the college season, and like you're almost at
Hmm.
the All-Star break after the holidays and all that kind of thing. But yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's the Knicks are like again, it's like a tempered fandom because you know it's never going to be that good. So you're just like, oh, there we go. Yeah, nice. Like, and you want to go there and like you try and get a couple games into the Garden every year just to be there. Like, and
Hmm.
but it's a trauma bond of sorts in
Yeah.
itself.
Trust me, I'm a Cubs fan. I've lived that for a long
Oh,
time.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But I mean, you had the years like I feel like there was like legit like hope when Melo was on the team, and
Oh my God, yeah. The
you
Melo
signed
years are big.
Amari, and unfortunately Amari got hurt too. And
That's tough. But yeah, I feel like part of all those fandoms is that like part of why it's so bad is because they've all jerked your chain pretty bad at one point
yeah.
or another, right? Like there's yeah. I mean, even um so the guy who ended up being my roommate at NYU was also on the team with me.
Mhm.
Grew up on Long Island. We get to like we're moving in and we're like pulling stuff out, whatever, just unpacking. And I have this towel from the game that I was at, which was I think it was game 5 of the 99 finals, 99 2000, 99 2000 finals, when the Spurs won.
Mhm.
And I went to the game. My dad, like through somebody at work, got us seats behind the basket. It was like
Oh.
incredible. And we watched them lose to rookie Tim Duncan and David Robinson's last, right. And I pull out the towel and he goes, I have that towel. He's like, I was at that game. We are like, figured out,
Whoa.
we sat in the same section during that game, both
Dang.
and watched. Yeah, it was crazy. He's still like one of my best friends, but uh, yeah. So like, yeah, the Knicks. It's like you get your hopes up because how can
Yeah.
you not?
Right.
But yeah, the mellow years where that was a whole thing. Like even the moments of like Lynn's sanity, right? You were like, oh
Mhm.
shit,
Yeah.
like this is like. Is this going to win us a championship? Absolutely not. Will this
Right.
like give me a good basketball high for a couple weeks? Shit, yeah, I'm in. Like,
But it's
let's
just
do it.
like that unfortunate like timing of everything where it's like, oh, we have like it's peak Mellow, but it's like the Celtics traded for KG.
Yeah,
It's like,
right, right,
oh,
right.
great.
It's
So
always
yeah,
it's always
that's
that.
unfortunate.
Yeah,
But this year, I mean, it's again, I mean, I feel like I'm in the same boat more or less with the Bulls right now, where it's like we're
yeah,
gonna fight for the bottom half.
yeah,
Um, but I don't know. How do you like Brunson so far?
yeah. I mean, like Brunson. So college basketball, like I have no allegiance, but I've always kind of liked Nova.
Hmm.
Like we had a 7-footer when I was a GA who ended up playing at Nova for a while and then ended up at Penn State. But like Jay Wright was around the gym and like he's again like he's just a good guy, right? Like
Hmm.
has just been doing it. He's in it for all the right reasons, and like those teams that he put together in that run, it's like they really built a cool program. And I felt like a lot of you can see it in the point guards. There's a
Yeah.
point guard lineage there, and Brenson's very much like a part of that. And yeah, I mean, when he was on the Mavs, it was like, oh, he's killing.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I really like watching him play. I feel like he's good for the culture. I feel like he's good for to have like around Randall because like that was another one where it's like loved Randall at Kentucky. I went to must have been like the Jordan Classic. It was one of the high school all-star games that was at Barclays.
Mhm.
And Ellis and I went with his dad because they're big Kentucky fans. His dad's from Lexington.
Sure.
Um, and Randall was going to Kentucky, and he was just like a man amongst boys.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's just like it was like, is that a tight end or if, like I whatever? But like watching him play has been great. And I feel like you gotta. It at least feels like they believe enough to go out and get Brunson and do that kind of thing. It's not the
Right.
sometimes with the Knicks it feels a little bit like, especially around like draft time or whatever. It just is like, all right, cool. Here's the guy they should pick, and here's the
Yep.
foreign player no one's heard of. Like,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
take Danilo Gallinari. Who the fuck? What? Like,
But it's
no,
yeah.
no offense to Gallo, but
Oh yeah. No, Gala has had its moments for sure. Um, but yeah, it's so interesting to think back at that early Lakers team when you think
yeah,
about Randall, Ingram, Lonzo,
yeah,
wild.
yeah,
And they all ended
crazy.
up having great seasons outside of the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, the refugees of that team are just far and wide. It's I can't remember like I'm the internet knows I'm a basketball fan enough that like you'll get all the, I'm sure you get them too, like all the different like things that scroll through your feed, random posts, and occasionally they'll post like a team you kind of forgot about was together for a few years. You know what I mean? Like Carl Malone on the Lakers, like that kind of thing where
Yes,
you're like, that
yes.
doesn't even look
And
right. Like
Gary Payton, yeah.
I'm Gary Payton, right? And like, or like Scottie Pippen as a Blazer, and you're like, what?
Uh-huh.
I guess, yeah, that did happen. I think, right?
Right.
Yeah. But that team looks like that when you see the photo. You're like, I guess, yeah,
Right.
this supposedly happened. Sure,
And that was for LeBron. It was all for LeBron. So
all for LeBron, all for LeBron.
are you also on the Isaiah Hartenstein train like all of Twitter apparently is?
No, whoa, no, I'm not hip. What is the Isaiah Hartenstein?
Apparently, like there's a huge crowd of Knicks fans who like they think Isaiah Hartenstein is going to be like so good for the Knicks.
Really?
Yes.
I
I
mean,
keep hearing Bill Walton comparisons, and I'm like, I don't know about that, man.
that's yeah. I mean, well, the thing about like again, all those Nick like the Knicks fandom, Giants fandom, like
Yeah.
all that stuff. It's like you don't have actual wins, so like
Right.
speculation, like rumors and like overhyping things, it's all we have.
Hmm,
Like
hmm.
that's the whole, it's why Jeremy Lin was so effective. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, this kid from Harvard, like I can
Right.
already see them making the movie. This kid from Harvard is going to turn around the team. We're going to win a
Hmm.
championship this year. Once Melo comes back, we're going to win the championship.
And I feel like Knicks fandom is also where you get those like ridiculous trades where like the entire NBA gets traded for each other.
Yes, yes, 100%,
I've
a
seen a lot
hundred
of those in my
percent.
feed recently where it's like Anthony Davis is going here and just
Oh
like
my God, yes,
absurd.
yeah,
Yeah, so I feel like maybe we'll see each other in the play-in, you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's all you're playing for at this point. It's like,
Yeah.
that's why yeah, Trey Young walking around the Garden going, "It's real fucking quiet in here." It's like that's why that hurts so bad is because this is all we had. We're
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
win two series. Come on, like it's
It's
all
all
we
about
had.
the stories. Yeah. All right. So the last thing is I sent you is a little game called
Yeah,
musician matchups.
this is hilarious. I reread it. I mean, you explain it first, but this is I think I misread it, so my answers might be even
Well, what's
even more as
funny,
based on it.
I mentioned Josh Berwinger. I think he did the exact same thing. So we planned it both ways.
Okay.
Uh, but well, yeah, I'm curious to see what you do. But the idea is we have a list of Knicks players, and
Yeah.
we want you to describe if they were a band. What band is it? Like
Right. Right.
what band do they sound like in their play style or how they dress, whatever it is, and the
Yeah.
way you
Yeah. Yeah.
justify it is the fun part.
Okay, cool. Then maybe I'm not too far off base, but this was a like as soon as I read this, I started laughing out loud on my computer. I was like, this is amazing. I was like,
Yeah,
this is
and
very good.
and the players I put together too. I immediately I the first one I have is Julius Randle, and I immediately regret putting him on the list because he's very hard to nail down. But I should have done like RJ Barrett or something. But why don't you go first? And what band is Julius Randle?
Okay, so uh my reasoning, this was the one that I struggled with the most too, but I was like,
Yes.
all right, like let me think about like how people feel about him, like where does he fit in? And somehow I ended up at Kevin Morby. I was like, he's like he's like a guy that like he's actually really good. People like his stuff. The fandom is like deeply committed,
Oh
right?
yeah.
But like outside the fandom, it's like he can get written off really quickly. But you're like, no, that guy can play. Like, have you seen him
Mhm.
play? Have you watched this? Like that's so that feels like how I landed there. But I was trying to think of people where it's like, who's a person who like their fans and supporters are like, no, he's really got the goods. He just needs the right situation. Like put him up there in front of whoever and like he can perform. Like he's going to carry this.
Totally.
But also is like if you go two clicks out there, like who, like yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
yeah.
think I've heard that one too, maybe.
But
But
you're very right about Morby because like the people who are really into it, they even like idolize his relationship with Waxahachie.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, the
yeah.
power couple, man.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. Like I feel that like his fandom is really cool.
He's great
And
too. I mean, he's great.
yeah, no, I love the records, and I a guy who named Sam Cohen who played guitar on some of my records is a good friend of his. Plays with him,
Mhm.
produced his like last record, did Singing Saw. But yeah, I've never heard a bad word about him. But
Yeah.
it is. I mean, he's even. I think he has like Royals style Kevin Morby hats, like
Hmm.
and he got. I'm pretty sure he got like his Twitter following to get to let the Royals throw him out a first
Yes.
pitch. They were like, if however many likes, and then we'll do it. And then like people actually rallied and did it. And it's like
Yes.
that's the kind of thing that I feel like that's the Julius Randle fandom.
Oh
It's like
yeah.
the people who are down for him are real down for Julius Randle.
I totally agree with that. And you're definitely doing this the right way.
Good, good.
um so we'll compare our answers. I went
Yeah.
for Julius Randle. I tried to go with his play style, and
Okay.
because he, like you mentioned earlier, like he's a bully. You know,
Yeah. Oh
he's a
yeah.
big dude, and he'll bruise you up. And
Yeah.
I was struggling too, so I asked some of the people in Discord too, and unanimously everyone agreed he's like an emo band you would skate to. So he's like an Alkaline Trio or like a Hot Water Music or something like that. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, as someone who my first gig ever was playing bass in an emo band and not singing, and I also used to skate a lot. I wholeheartedly I'm in, no
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. Yeah, it's just that's just his vibe. You know, he's gonna take some spills and he'll get back up.
He likes the contact.
Yeah,
That's exactly.
absolutely. All right. So the next one is legend Charles Oakley.
Oh man.
This
Okay,
there's a
so
lot of backstory here. I can't wait to see where this goes.
this uh I went at like at first I was like, all right, who's a musician I wouldn't want to fight? Right? Because like when I think of Charles Oakley, I'm like his teammates are afraid of him. Like that's
Right.
the like you don't mess with Charles Oakley. Uh, but I ended up on Courtney Love because I
Oh,
was like, who's a person who we like absolutely like well known, actually could like good player, did some real stuff, has some things to speak of, but also like is very likely to be thrown out of like nice seats at an event. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like going to be banned from his seat like two rows back from the court. Like what is the equivalent? Like who's the person that's going to be at a really nice event but might be asked to leave and probably not come back? And I felt like also I don't know that I'd want to fight Courtney Love. Like
Oh, no, no, no.
I feel like she's scrappy. Like I you know that could be yeah yeah. So that's I ended up with Courtney Love. I'm not sure that's a playing style match, but
It
in
doesn't
terms
have
of
to be.
like
That's you know, in the past we've done just based on like how they dress, like what band they look like they would be in, you know, like
oh fair
it's
yeah yeah
whatever. But we're in agreement there because whatever it is, whatever band or musician we pick, it's a fuck you attitude for sure.
yeah yeah yeah
It's
yeah
like I don't care if I played for your team, like I don't like you.
yeah
He
yeah
doesn't
yeah.
like the Knicks now, like
It's kind of great. Like
the Dolan
and
stuff is just like incredible.
and the thing is like their Dolan is so at best like divisive among
Yeah.
the fan base, and that is like a generous telling, right? Uh that like even when he was tossing him out, it's like everybody was like, okay, not the way he should have handled it, but also like,
Right.
yeah, kind of fuck Nolan though. Like
Yeah.
everyone's like, I might have done that too.
Yeah. And it's like in my mind, I'm like, who is like the music equivalent of like Lewis Black? Because that's like the same energy.
Yes, yes,
I
yes,
went with
absolutely.
Minor Threat. You know, it you just have to
Yeah,
go with something just very violent and
yeah,
just aggressive and just a big old middle finger.
right. Wants all the smoke. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. The third one is Alan Houston. He was like a stopgap legend.
Allen Houston is like this one was a little bit more playing style related, but Allen Houston I feel like is another one where if someone's like, "Oh, I like the Knicks," and then they like talk about Carmelo or Patrick Ewing or somebody who's really big, like Allen
Mhm.
Houston is the like if you know you know player. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you know what I mean? It's the LJ 4 point play era. Like it's a specific uh era of the Knicks where like you kind of had to be paying attention. And then Allen Houston, it's like incredibly like smooth player. Like
I feel
just
like in the same way that Brandon Roy,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
even play
Brandon
style,
Roy
they
is
were
like
very similar.
yeah. I mean, Brandon Roy almost feels like I mean that's just when you realize how good Brandon Roy was, that's what makes it so tragic. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that guy really was a killer.
Or Penny
Uh,
Hardaway, same deal. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But I went with Andy Schaaf because we've toured with Andy, and he's another one where he's actually literally as like silent, like he's just he he is such a quiet guy that you're like, damn, I think he actually hates us, and it's just he's just hanging. He's totally
Hmm.
fine. He's just hanging, but um, that and the fact that like he's playing like sort of folky songs, but they all kind of groove pretty hard. And then he
Hmm.
like sneaks clarinet and like
Yeah.
70% of the like
They
I was
sneak
like,
up
this
on
is
you. Yeah.
they do. I was like, it's like the bummer Beach Boys, but this is smooth as fuck. Like, and all his songs are like sounds like he's having a bad time, but then like you listen a little closer and you're like, I think he just stole his friend's girl for like the third song in a row. Like I don't like this dude. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like this is,
It's like,
but that's what it feels like.
have you heard the latest Beth's album?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, that's like, man, this is such fun music. But then you listen to the lyrics and like, oh man,
All right. Oh
this is
my God.
heavy.
Yeah, right, right. But yeah, Andy feels like he's like the silent killer, like smoother than you think, that
That's
kind of
good.
thing.
That's good. Yeah. Um, my pick was I kind of went back how you did the first few, and it's like so Allen Houston was definitely like a player that you wish had more success.
Yeah, yeah.
And that because he was a great player. Um, and he did have some success, but you just thought that he could have had more. And I went with the band Annuals.
I
I don't know if
don't
you've
know
ever
if I
listened to
know
them.
annuals. No, I mean
They
maybe this is a testament to that they.
they actually might be. I think they're like an upstate New York band too.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
but yeah, they had two albums. I think you know around the time we graduated, late two
Yeah,
thousands. Um, so good. Like it's like this kind of like building aggressive folky stuff. Um,
I'm into
there's
it.
like a lot of Bright Eyes comparisons, but then there's also like um, I'm trying to think, but it is honestly it reminds me a lot of like the first San Fermin album too. Even
Huh,
I,
I'll
I
definitely
would
figure that.
highly recommend checking them out because like those first two
Absolutely.
albums are really good. But yeah, you know they had some success, and then all of a sudden they were gone, and you're
Yeah.
just like, what happened? Where did they
Right.
go?
Right. Yeah. All you have is the fond memories.
Uh huh. So now we're getting into the legends, the top
Yes.
tier.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Carmelo Anthony.
So mellow to me feels like I went with Phoebe Bridgers because it's just
Mm,
like they're just gonna continue to get shots up like that. Just a scorer, like celebrity and player, like
yeah.
can go by one name. It's just Phoebe. No one, everyone knows who you're talking about. It's just Mello. Like you don't need the
Celebrity partner as well.
whole celebrity partner. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, they both
Lala
do.
Anthony.
Yeah.
right? But yeah, I mean, I feel like uh, Phoebe, when Punisher came out and it was her second album, I was like, yeah, if you discount the like Boy Genius and then
Yeah, yeah.
Better Oblivion Community and then like all the other stuff that she's been on in the meantime, and I was like,
Hmm.
it's like sophomore
She
album, if you
she is
discount
busy.
45
Yes,
songs, right? I was like, we're getting shots up like this,
she
like
was in a
just quietly
movie.
just right, like just putting up buckets. Like this is
She's doing songs with Zach Galifianakis and Matt Berninger. Like what?
exactly. And that feels the same way. It's like when Melo catches the ball, it's like, yeah, he might pass if they quadruple team him, but this one's
Yeah,
probably going up. Like
right.
just I'd get under. Like this is probably going up.
Perfect. That's so perfect. Um, Also, I gotta say, I of all the guests I've had do this, I appreciate you actually pulling indie bands. No, most people go for like a throwback band or whatever kind of comes to mind, but you're sticking to the subject, which I love.
No, I think yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's the Knicks not never having quite the stars that you
The
want. And
Knicks
like
have the indie mentality.
yeah, we're an indie franchise here in little old
Yeah.
New York.
So my pick for Carmelo was I went with, he had a great career with the Nuggets.
Yeah,
He had crazy success with the Nuggets, and then he even, pushed it further with the Knicks. So
yeah.
I'm going with Damon Albarn because
Wow.
the
Yeah.
Blur super successful, and then he's like, "Oh, now you're going to do the Gorillas." Okay,
Yeah, sure. Deal.
yeah,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
he's the double success point right there. That's the connection I made.
Hell yeah.
Which brings us to our final one, which is the great Patrick Ewing.
So this one, this is a Chicago icon. So I hope that this is well received. But so Patrick Ewing, part of what's so funny about Patrick Ewing is that like one, he's Patrick Ewing, like he's the like absolute like unquestionable goat. But then he's also like had a career as a coach that's been like kind of like there's been moments like that you
Mm-hmm.
occasionally get excited about like Georgetown. He's but it just feels the difference between there's a gulf between his coaching career and his like playing career,
Yeah.
certainly his collegiate career, his professional career. It's like, so who is a like all-star pantheon level like indie artist who would probably go back and like coach indie if you could coach indie? Uh, and I ended up with Jeff Tweedy partially
Yes.
because he has that songwriting book. But I was like, who's just like way too big to be doing this, but like probably just might go back to like his alma mater and just like teach indie music. And it's like
Yes.
just coach up the indie club. And it's like Jeff Tweedy would be out here teaching these kids how to write songs and just like no, a little
Absolutely.
sadder. Right. And no, every now and then you do have to chew out your bandmates, like just, make like just teach them the game the right way. Like that's where I feel like
You're
Jeff
hitting a
Tweedy fits
soft
in,
spot with me
especially.
right now, absolutely. Because Wilco is in my pantheon, and
Of course, of course.
he's the reason I met my wife, actually. So
Oh wow. Wow.
yeah, love Jeff Tweedy. That's an excellent comparison. I feel like what I love about Jeff Tweedy now even is like he knows he's getting older, and now he's letting his son be like, tell me all the bands I should like have tour with me. So
Oh
all
my
these
God.
like new young bands are like touring with Wilco, and it's like
Yeah.
amazing, like Namdi and stuff like that. It's awesome.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's a great one. Yeah, I've always had this kind of conversations of like where does it start as classic rock? You know,
Yeah.
when do
Yeah.
you become classic rock? Because I feel like once there was a REM. I feel like REM was classic rock recently, and then they like
Yeah.
stopped playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, who is like Radiohead classic rock now? Like, I don't know.
I mean, it's funny now too to like feel things. I feel like I'm feeling references get older in a way I might not have otherwise because I produce like I produce for all kinds of people, but I'm producing for a lot of people who are younger than I am, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them are much younger, and they'll come in and they'll make reference, and I was like, Oh yeah, no, I know that stuff because I was around when it came out. Like it's I listened to it the first time. Yeah,
All
can
right.
definitely do that for you. No sweat. But that's cool that you like that now too. That's yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so I think if you hang around long enough, and I guess if it's I feel like that's always a good thing. It's like, all right, cool, you were into cool shit. It's like finding out your parents listen to cool music, right? It's like, because it's like that's weird because my parents aren't cool, so how come you
Right,
were
right.
listening to this?
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
Oh man.
I definitely see it. Ewing and Jeff Tweedy. It's a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
match.
Coach
My
Jeff. It was Coach Jeff
coach
again.
coach Jeff. My pick was I feel like it's in a similar vein. I mean, Patrick Ewing came up in a time of like NBA giants.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
and he was like one of the greatest, but like somehow still underrated.
yeah, yeah.
So I went with television because
Absolutely.
that era of music, there was so many huge bands,
Yeah,
and like
yeah, yeah.
like television fit right into that genre, but for
Oh
some
yeah.
reason they still never like got that same amount of recognition. But they're so
Right.
good.
They're not on the tip of everyone sung in that same way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I feel like that's my team's. We had some good comparisons in this list right now.
This is good. This
Yeah,
is very solid.
you
I was a
nailed
little
it.
where I was like, I hope I did not completely
What
misunderstand.
did you think it was?
Well, I think in your email, like that I read later, or like read more closely, like right before we started, it was like that these players sound like, and I was like, oh no, because I had like half of mine were like, whatever that like that I wouldn't want to fight Courtney Love, right? Or that I bet Jeff Tweedy would coach after
Right.
being way too famous to coach.
I've
Another like yeah,
I have done it I've had a lot of Sixers fans on, so like I don't
yeah,
want to do this every time for the Sixers. So I have done a different iteration where I have people make a band out of uh NBA players. I'm like,
okay,
what instrument would they play? So some when I had Josh Berminger on, he interpreted it as both, and he just came
yeah,
prepared for both.
wow, wow.
So that that one's a lot harder, and it takes a little like thinking on for sure because
Yeah.
just
Well, I mean,
you got
you've like, do they have to be a band that like stays together and plays well, or can they be a band that like makes one album, hates it, but
I
like the
mean
shows are
you're
wild,
making the
right?
story basically.
Right, right, right. It's like if Kelly Oubre fronts the band, it's like that's specific, but like he
Yeah,
could do it.
that's see like that first pick, whatever instrument they play, that's forming your genre right there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, dude, thanks so much for joining. This has been awesome.
Of course, man. This was a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely.
Um,
I'm sure Ellis will be all the more jealous now. I'm telling you, he'll be reaching out if you don't beat him to it.
oh yeah, is Ellis also a Knicks fan, or is he?
No, so he grew up outside of Boston and is like uh, a he's he's a Celtics fan and like was for like all the prime like prime Celtics years and like growing up. And then I think particularly when like all the late Celtics like went to rest as Brooklyn Nets briefly. Then and when we live right near Barclays, I think that fandom is there a little bit too. But the really hardcore one is like he and his dad are so in on Kentucky basketball that it's like the high school prospects who when they commit there, like he's
I
like
mean,
watching their tape like that committed to it.
for a good long while, I mean, that was the NBA funnel system. So
Yeah, yeah,
John
absolutely.
Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Eric Bledsoe, like insane. They
Oh
were all on the
yeah,
same team.
yeah, yeah, crazy.
Okay, yeah, well, I will definitely reach out to him. I think we were I because I lived in Brooklyn for almost 4 years. I think I was just on the other side of Barclay Center from you.
Oh yeah, where were you?
I was in Park Slope. I was
Oh, nice.
uh
That's my my wife and I live now. We're
oh,
on sixth and ninth.
not too far from where I was. Yeah, I was on Park Place in Sixth.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. That's so funny.
Well, yeah. Well, all right, man. So thanks again for joining. Is there anything you want to kind of shout out and plug?
The Knicks, man. Let's go. This is our year.
Yeah. You gotta
Bizarre year.
there you go, keeping that Knicks spirit alive.
Listen, man, I heard it was said about the Mets, but I think it's true for most of the New York fandoms that aren't like Yankees, right? Somebody asked the guy who's like, why do you like being a Mets fan? He's like, it's good, it's character building, right? Like it's really like, well, what do you like least about being a Mets fan? And it's like May to October, like the season.
Yep, that is accurate.
That is,
Well, I'm
yeah.
happy
So
I got
that's
my
interesting.
one with the Cubs. So I
Yeah,
got my one.
yeah. Absolutely, man. That was important. It needed it. And that team was pretty untouchable.
Yeah. And Mets had came close. They came close.
Yeah, yeah. But that was another one where, again, even with that, the Mets winning 100 games this year, right? The whole time you're just like, I don't know. Like they're
And
still says right.
we now
right.
know what
It's like,
happened.
it's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, right. It's just you're kind of always bracing for it because it's just like
Lost the
this is
division on the last day of the season.
on the last day of the season to another 100 win team in the division. And the team from the division that went to the World Series was neither of those teams. It was the third team.
Yep. Classic New York stuff.
Classic.
All right, man. Thanks again for joining. I'm looking forward to new album. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of the next season.
Yeah, I'll do my best, man. We'll when we come through Chicago on the new record, I'll hit you up for sure.
Absolutely. All right, take care, dude.
Peace, man.